it's bringing its claws out to exactly show who it is targeting. And of course, everyone is looking at the opposition as being the audience this law is actually made. But other than that, I think we had the debate, or rather the issue of the teachers being addressed by the president in his own way, which has stirred a lot of public outcry, or rather it has just interested the public into picking it up and then trying to analyze it whichever way they would like. And maybe that's something we're going to get further or deeper into for the rest of the show. But other than that, we're still pretty much where we were before, which is the honorable MPs that are still incarcerated for murder charges are still on hold. Looks like we finally made it to the World Guinness Book of Records of being the country that has actually locked up its school-going population for the longest period in the pandemic. It's quite a record to break. And I think we're doing well in that department, which is rather unfortunate in today's world. But again, that is the Uganda we have today. So those are some of the issues that I see as a training that are a little, taking up the public kind of attention, besides all the other issues that are probably still in the background that are ongoing, that maybe we shall get to them when they also make it to the scene. That's how I am. That's kind of the way I would wrap up the issues that I've been training this week, Dr. Jacob.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lawrence. Honorable Mikey, let me start with you here. You are the Secretary General of the front, and we saw that President Besigye was very, very pertinent last week and came out with a plan. It is a 24 crisis action point for the country, in which he said that part of the build-up of the plan was this 24 crisis action plan. In his booklet, which he read out to the newsmen, he said that what he referred to as the education apartheid. He talked about impunity, state capture, the tax burden. He talked about poverty. He talked about youth unemployment and lack of democracy. He talked about mismanagement of oil and gas resources and environmental issues, as well as human trafficking. We want you, as Secretary General, to express to the viewers exactly what is your plan. What are those issues that you are trying to address?
Thank you. As you all know, I've heard you say that this is a Besigye front. It is not a Besigye front. This is called the People's Front for Transition. Meaning it is a people's front. It is not a front for individuals. It is a front for each and every Ugandan. It is a front for everybody at home and in the diaspora interested in doing one thing: procuring a democratic transition for Uganda. How different is this front from the previous fronts? Is that this one is not an electoral alliance. This is an all-inclusive coalition of civil and political actors from the diversified Ugandan populace that are coming together to ensure that Uganda transits from the current dictatorship to a fully democratic dispensation. So I wouldn't like really this to be referred as the passenger front. Passenger front, I think that limits it. It is not an individual front. It is a front for everybody. And as you realize, it is also a front for the willing, those who agree to its objects. It's also a front different from the previous efforts because, as you know, this one departs fundamentally from other arrangements where political parties could come together and form alliances. This one is a coalition of political parties, academia, student groups, trade groups, civil society organizations, and very, very many other diversified groups, as you all know, in Uganda. So the front as a framework, as I said, the front outed a document called The Crisis in Uganda Today. And in the near future, the front is also going to out the solution. As you realize, bail, I had my fellow panelists talking about bail. That issue has been canvassed in that very document, if you have read very well. And that document canvasses, actually it captures the current state of affairs in Uganda, which we have termed as a crisis. Uganda is facing a political, social, economic crisis. And the crisis arising out of course, years of nepotism, years of corruption, years of deliberate neglect, years of impunity, years of looting public assets and misnamed privatization, and years of real exclusivity have resulted into what we have called a class system in Uganda, segregation in Uganda, where you've got three classes. The first class is of those who captured power using the military. They control the military, and they're the current leaders and their families. Of course, they are living in a opulence. They are filthy rich. They are protected by the military. They are arrogant. They work. They execute their duties with impunity. That is the first class. Now it is this class which controls all the resources, and there's now the second class, which you can call the middle class, the small class, that of course lives on the whims of the first class. You can call, say, the lawyers, the doctors, professionals. That class of people largely has a salary. They are a little comfortable. They are comfortable. They have an I don't care attitude. And of course, now the third class, which is the majority of Ghanaians, 90%. That class that is living in abject poverty, that is unemployed, that lives from hand to mouth, that can't earn a dollar a day. They are hungry, they are angry, they are desperate, and they want deliverance. And it is that
Yes, Dr. Jacob, looks like we just lost you as well back there. Yeah, looks like we just lost Dr. Joko is also just going to be dialing back into the studio. We're just having a few technical issues that we try to work on with our producer in the background. Please don't go away. Stay with us.
Time takes a toll on everyone, they say. Time is merciless, it won't wait for us to change. Time, I am stressing out, I can't figure out what to say. Oh, time, just give us time. Time, looking back on pictures, and I find it hard to see you and myself in places.
All right, viewers, you're welcome back to the studio. I think we have Dr. Joko back with Honorable Mabike.
Technical issues, but have been resolved. Thanks to the technical team. Thank you, Honorable Mabike, for the kind of insight you have put across. And I believe everybody is now aware of what is the front about. It's not about Honorable Resident in particular. Lawrence, can you please come in this regard and substantiate on what Honorable Mabike has said?
Thank you so much again, Dr. Joko and Honorable Mike Mabike, for that rather clear picture of what PFT is all about. I think most of us are actually shrouded in the midst of what this front is all about, but then having people like you come out to actually tell the wider world what it is about, and shows like this actually, helps a great deal. The way I look at this front, I think it's no different from what the other fronts have actually put on the table, which is try to make sure that we get a peaceful transition from the current regime to whatever system or leader or party takes on the leadership stage. And but what is unique about your front is that it has got all the old timers in one kind of grouping, which is not usually a common kind of occurrence. Usually, what we've seen in the past, like when we see what happened just before elections, when I think it was. Former FDC party president, the name escapes me. He came up with the ant. I don't know if someone could remind me of the name. It just escaped my mind while I was here. And probably his timing wasn't the best, and he was facing probably a bigger force, which is the people power at the moment. Now, right now, having the red card come into the center stage is sort of refreshing in a way, because yes, we do need new ideas or new strategies to get into the political scene to see how we can get a way forward that is actually going to get us that peaceful transition that everyone is kind of yearning for in Uganda. And this is almost true for almost all classes. You talked about the three classes. They are the leaders, the middle class, and the rest. We can agree that all the classes need the same thing, which is to have a peaceful Uganda, a secure Uganda, one in which people can actually, reach their dreams and goals. And anyone with who is contributing to that effort, I think, is welcome, to the table to give his strategy or his plan, and then kind of have everyone on board, and such that the nation can move forward. My only kind of reservation to the group is all players in the team, like Honorable Mapike, put it. Yes, it's not Besigye front as much as probably Besigye is the most popular, since he has contested for the highest office in the land. I'm just wondering how you're gonna reconcile all these kind of past attempts, and then which have somehow failed to a certain extent to lead us to exactly the goals of the new front. What again is going to be done different this time that is going to reassure Ugandans that if we backed you and then supported your cause, we are actually going to get the long sought results that we've wanted to have for so long. Yes, like you said, this is not a political party per se. It's a movement, just like how we had people power come up, and then it kind of metamorphizes itself into becoming the National Unity Platform. Are we thinking, if I may ask, now that I have the chance to have you, Honorable Mabike, is it that this front is going to be, or rather, kind of shed itself into a new party as the People Power movement did? Or is this going to just remain on the activism side, just being an ally of anyone who promises to deliver? And by this, can People Power, can all the other forces there that haven't joined you getting on board, and then try to get us that very result that we want to achieve? I would want to hear your side on that, because I don't want to speculate. Since you're here as a Secretary General, those would be good answers to have. But otherwise, for now, I'm only eager to see, because I think it's too early to tell. Yes, it's a good strategy that you came up with, trying to first put the problem out and then put the solution next. I think that's refreshing to see in the political scene, and I'm sure many people out there are eager to see what is going to be brought on the table. But like others, I am only still asking more questions, and maybe the more answers I get, we can get from people like you, this would help frame the discussion better, and probably sell the idea best to anyone who is going to be an ally for you. So if I may just probably first stop right there, just to get a few answers, and then we can proceed with the discussion.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, as you try to indulge and help to explain the situation. Honorable Mabike, the microphone goes back to you. You see, one very disturbing thing about the people is that they are looking at this as a kind of rotational opposition work. The other time it was FDC. I mean, this time the other time was NOPE. This time it is the front. I mean, how do you assure the people that this is going to work, and how do they take it from you that this time the dictator is going to be removed from power?
Thank you. I believe you have been following the event in Kampala. I am sure that you followed the emergence of NUP.
Can you speak a little louder, Honorable?
I am sure that you did follow the movement that resulted into NUP. I am sure that you know that the basis of NUP was the DP block. We first formed the DP block, and the foundation of People Power Movement was the DP block. And again, until DP block joined the NUP, you remember, had failed to take off. So we have been part and parcel of this process. We know how to engineer them. We know how things are going to work out. That's number one. Number two, I think it is Rollins who have said, old timers. No. Now, this issue of so-called old timers, I think we should be able to explain it very well. You can learn on the job as president. You can learn on the job as member of parliament. You can learn on the job as a councillor. You can learn on the job as mayor. But the struggle has got no room for learners. And part of the problem we are having today is that we put leaders who didn't have the experience, who didn't have this, who were not seasoned. So seasoned leaders, experienced leaders are very important if you are going to struggle. It's not just about being young, being new. No, it is much more than that. Two, you should also know that the previous efforts have been electoral alliances. Political parties have been coming together to forge electoral alliances for elections. The front is not about elections. Actually, the position of the front on elections is that every cycle of elections is a carefully crafted and skewed tool to legitimize, basically, the dictatorship. Even before you go into an election, the result is known, because one of the contestants is actually has appointed an electoral commission, or one of the contestants is contesting, and one of the contestants is paying the electoral commission. Therefore, you cannot get a free and fair result. The electoral commission is not independent, it is partisan. So we have said very clearly that elections in Uganda are subversive, and that actually Ugandans need to pick this, and Ugandans need to take to invoke Article 3, Subclause 4 and 5 to ensure that they restore sanity. Now, we in the front have outed the crisis for debates. Ugandans are going to be debating this for the coming 1 week. After 1 week, we are going to come back and give Ugandans what we consider as solutions. You have been talking about the issues we are touching. education. You talked about it. I think it was Lawrence who talked about it. You've been talking about issues of bail. You have been talking about issues of teachers. Now, this regime, as is irredeemable. There is nothing you can now do to improve the situation in Uganda today, except a fundamental reset. We are calling for a fundamental reset of the political, socio-economic infrastructure of Uganda. However much you lament about teachers, you are going to lament about the health crisis. You are going to lament about corruption. You lament about impunity. You lament about bad governance. The only solution is one: complete reset. You need to uproot this entire system, put it aside, put a new system that can now deliver the kind of Uganda that we want. For now, I want to stop there.
There is also another kind of talk in the town that, as Lawrence has put it across, the people that seem to be within the front are quite the people that have been on the block for a long time. And it seems like these political people with a lot of vigor and activism and revolutionary feeling have been left out in this, which would make possibly the other people looking at it as a contestation of possibly holding the side of the opposition. The other time, the opposition was very, vibrant, and now these days it has been a little down. And then here comes the front. How do you again assure the people, the viewers, or the Ugandans that it's not a contestation of egg? It is a matter of contestation of ideas and trying to forge ways by which Uganda can be liberated.
Number one, you should know, and our viewers should understand, that no one in the entire opposition has got monopoly of ideas. Number two, when you say that these are old timers, what have the new kids on the block delivered? Actually, as you realize, you have rightly mentioned, Dr. Joko, that there has been a virtue. Museveni had a walkover at the last election. It was actually a walkover. The wrong results were announced, elections were rigged, results were announced, there was no fight. Even it was complete failure to petition successfully in a constitutional court. There wasn't even a single tire burnt on the streets of Kampala. It was like business as usual. Why? Because, of course, not a broad section of Ugandans had been involved in the previous election. But it is by and large very clear that in Uganda today, there is a big political vacuum. And it is a vacuum that the front is coming to fill. To tell you so, as you all know, in 1980, Uganda had a crisis, a similar crisis. Obote had rigged elections. Obote had captured power by force through a lopsided and fraudulent electoral process. Ugandans debated what to do for Obote. The team which was popular then, the NUP at that time, was called the Democratic Party. It was led by Dr. Paul Kawanga Semuge. It was by all standards far popular. That group decided to go to parliament and resist Obote from within his own system. But another group opted for a different framework altogether. That was a group of Joel Kaguta Museveni. They read the signs of the day correctly, and they said, well, we are going to take a different path. We will not join, we will not join Obote in parliament. We will not work with him in any way. We are going to take our own action. Now, the action we're talking about that the front is going to take in the coming days is the action that the people of Uganda now believe in. People of Uganda have lost confidence in elections. They believe that elections can never deliver change. Parliament as is useless. I'm not sure whether you know that, that in a parliament of 529 and the entire opposition is less than 100, you can't even change a sentence in a bill. You can't even change a sentence in a bill. So if anybody thinks that a parliament is the right path to take, we wish them well. If anybody thinks elections are the path to take, we wish them well. But we believe that Ugandans are now all convinced that that path cannot never deliver the results that they want, and that it is time to look at different options. The front has come to look at the different options. The front has got experienced people. The front has got seasoned leaders, and I am sure that in the coming days, we are also going to try as much as possible to bring on board all the other key actors. It is also true that all the actors were actually consulted, but actors had their own reservations. Those reservations, I hope now with the front activities and with progress, they now must realize that their reservations were far-fetched. So in the coming days, we're going to try as much as possible to engage key stakeholders and try to bring them on board. We believe that this is the correct path that everybody now should rally around, including you in the diaspora.
Yes, Honorable. And again, to add on that, you've mentioned something very pertinent, that Uganda in the 1979, we had a very big crisis, and Ugandans sat together and discussed the way forward. And you see, capturing power is something very big because it involves negotiation from where power belongs. It seems that to the people, but the people don't have the powers again. It's a kind of a vicious circle of power struggle. I mean, power vacuum. Honorable, I want you to be very clear on this and tell us that if all those ways have failed, what approach are you planning to use to capture power? Because when you look at Dr. Besigye, all the other three elections, he won the elections, but he didn't capture power. Even the last election, Bobby Wine, Honorable Chagulanyi, won election. This is very evident, but did not capture power. How are you planning to capture power in this regard?
And thank you for that question, but we are not going to be like the politicians you are used you are used to, because the politicians are used to come on in the public and they warn. They tell me, Mr. Museveni, we are coming tomorrow at State Square. And what do you expect of somebody who was the police, who was security, who was the military to do? If you warn him and tell him we are coming tomorrow, what do you expect him to do? He will wait for you. Or he will try to preempt you. So we are not going to be here and tell you we are going to do this and this. Maybe only when the time is right, we shall tell the country what you're going to do. But be sure that our strategies are different. And some of the strategies we are going to use are similar to those of Mr. Museveni. You know, when Mr. Museveni went to the bush, he had the element of surprise, element of ambush. When you're fighting a war like this one, you must keep all the cards to your chest and only ambush your opponent, surprise your opponent. That is what we are going to. That is part of the strategy that we are engaged in. But we very soon are going to unveil the actual strategy and what you must do. You should also know, my friend, that the front is only a building block. The front is not the end in itself. The front is only a means to the end. And having said that, we have taken the first step. That step, and we have put the first brick. The front is like a tofali, katikiro maigazi tofali. Young, old, rich, poor, women, men, boys, girls, business community, everyone makes a contribution. Everyone brings a tofali. So the front has been structured that way, that everybody can be able to contribute to the front, because there is no monopoly of ideas. No one has got monopoly of ideas. Therefore, it is also important, as you say, that best year one, Samogere won actually 1986, best year one all the times. So is Bobby Wine, they won. So now you realize, and all of you people in the diaspora now, I think, realize that winning an election in Uganda is one thing, but taking power is another. The front strategy is to sort the equation. Now we all know that you can win an election, but we don't know how you can take the power. We have come up with that strategy on how now you can take the power. Unfortunately, Museveni is weaker. Fortunately, NRM is weaker. You cannot tell me that the regime which has been in power for 6 years is growing in strength. It is not. It is actually weakening by the day. So we are very convinced that this strategy finally is going to work, and that this must be we are in the last phase of the struggle to deliver for Uganda a new dispensation. We are much more confident. And this work also should also know that while you need to engage political actors on the opposition, civil society, members in the security, members in police, members in the UPDF, progressives in the NRM, the international community, the church leaders, traditional leaders, and all key stakeholders in the country. This struggle is not just about the parties in the front. No. The struggle is broader. The struggle has been broadened, and the reach out is actually also broader than has been. It is not only a political party front, it is a front for every key stakeholder in Uganda. And that brings me to your contribution in the diaspora. The diaspora people always get very excited, very quickly excited. You get quickly excited about all these things. But you don't take time to really interrogate some of these movements which spring up down the road. I know you are still very excited about people power, about and all that. But I'm sure that it's time that you looked critically at what needs to be done and what kind of forces you need to partner with and align with.
Yes, Honorable. Once again, when you look at the issue of Ugandans have been so much, as you've mentioned, excited and have a lot of expectation. And when you look at most of the expectations that Ugandans had were not fulfilled. It was empty promises. Like in 2021 election, people seem to have thought possibly that the People Power movement was going to take over, notwithstanding all other challenges. And here comes the front. But what was so very unfortunate with the people power movement, it did not have ideologies. It was working on sloganization and talk a lot of talking with no technical people that would design strategies that were to take over government. It was just, we are removing a dictator. It wasn't a strategy, it was sloganization. I mean, how are you, what is your uh, ideology as a front? What are you offering for Ugandans as an ideology? What political structure are you talking about in this regard that you are going to give the people of Uganda?
That one, sloganeering does not work on a dictator. You are also realizing that however much you post on social media that you are removing a dictator, you use the social media, you put abuses, those don't work against the dictator. Muluganda, dictator, tomukunamira bukunami tomuvuma bukumi n'agenda tomumwemula buwe muzina olowooza nti agenda. No, there's much more than that, and it needs seasoned people. It is not just about age. Actually, for me, when you say these are old timers, I would also say that they have the positive aspect of having experience. We have seen what the new group in Kampala is doing, and I think you can even juxtapose it with what FDC did or what even BSJ did previously. The difference is there for everyone to see that actually we are not doing the correct things. We're not doing the right things in as far as making strides towards getting the dictator out. You have rightly mentioned 2021 is the only election where we ran without a manifesto. And there were no ideas on how to manage a country. There was no clear ideology on how to manage a country. How can you go into an election, you offer yourself to lead a nation without a plan? So these are all the deficiencies that we must now work together, old and young, new and old timers, to resolve, to see that we really get better organized. The question is about organization. The question is about putting forward a clear plan. The question is now about bringing as many people on board who are clear about what needs to be done. Now, of course, we are outing the program in the coming 10 days, a very clear program based on sound ideological pillars. One of the pillars is that we are clamoring for a small government. We want a small government. By a small government, we mean that cabinet, parliament, and all institutions of the state shall be downsized and managed better. Number two, we are all running on a pillar of zero tolerance and corruption. And you all know that corruption is under the greater tenet of transparency and accountability. We want a transparent and accountable government that is free of corruption, because we know the dangers that corruption has brought to our country. So we are going to run a transparent and accountable government. We are going to put a lot of resources in fighting corruption, and we are going to unveil a detailed plan in the coming 10 days. We want power devolution. As you all know, that the nation has been clamoring for federalism for many, many years. Since 1966, when the constitution was abrogated, the nation has been clamoring for power devolution. Why power devolution? We believe that we should have power devolution corruption, if we are to remove wastage, if we have to have more resources for development, if we are to check corruption at a lower level. So we want to bring for Uganda a government that has shared responsibilities, shared power, and shared finances. Finances, we should remove the long bureaucracy and actually have the finances taken to the areas where they want, and the regions where they want it most. In our program, of course, we talk about removing the military from politics. This has been a fundamental problem. It has been a problem of Burma. It has been a problem of Indonesia. It has been a problem of Philippines. It has been a problem of Zimbabwe. It has been a problem of Egypt. It is a problem of Sudan. How do you get the military controlled and fully subordinate to civilian authority? This has been one of Uganda's problems. And we are going to unveil a program on how we can fully subordinate the military and really have a professional army that is there to keep the peace, that is there to keep life and property of Ugandans. Detail is actually a 18-point plan, which you should be unveiling in the coming days.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you very much for that enlightenment. And I believe everyone is then finally on that very point, Honorable, people, the diaspora seems to be of different categories, like Ugandans are. There's that kind of classism in which you find that a group, some people seem to have been part of the people power because they don't mind about whether they have ideologies that concur with their thinking. And there are those that are very critical who look at. I wonder whether you have in your plans to have a group or a conference that is basically to involve a lot of Ugandans, as you've mentioned, it's for all Ugandans to come up together and then discuss all those proposals that you have in the front. And then people will be having resolutions that they come up as a people of Uganda, because in almost all the systems, people have not been consulted. People, when Museveni went to the bush to fight, he did not consult the people. When the other political organizations were trying to capture power, they did not consider the people. How are you planning to have the people involved? Because if they are involved, possibly you will not have a lot of problems that would take people to think that it is a one-sided kind of people.
Yes, the front was launched nearly 21 days ago. We are in a process of course, continuing with the consultations. We would like to see serious engagements with you, especially in the diaspora, who don't seem to be. I am sorry to say, but the diaspora doesn't seem to be picking the right issues. The diaspora seems to be muchinyumo. Oyambala akakofiira, then Museveni goes. Then
both sides. I mean, even in Uganda, we have those people who are Kinyumu people, and those that are really look at issues in pertinently. The same thing in the diaspora. And actually, people tend not to consider those ones who are very pertinent, who are trying to analyze issues. They always go for the other ones who make a lot of organization and wearing, Yes, go ahead, sir.
We're planning a meeting in the diaspora in December. We may have a delegation coming over to UK and to America to explain more about the front and also to engage with those who wish to engage, and with those who are also ready to look at other options. Because I can assure you, there is no single political party or individual in Uganda who can do the work that Uganda wants to be done. No single party has the capacity. No single individual has the capacity. And I think the previous 2 elections have proved that he cannot be BSJ, doesn't have the capacity. Even Bobby Wine doesn't have the capacity. Nope doesn't have the capacity. So does FDC or DP or any other political party. Therefore, all efforts must be made at unity to unite all the fighting force, all the democracy-seeking forces, and even if you united all the democracy-seeking forces together, again, they are not enough. You need to bring on board progressive NRM. You need to bring on board elements of the military. You need to bring on board elements of the security and police and the civil service in order to have a critical mass that now you can use to stage the dictatorship and deliver for Uganda the dispensation that you are all yearning for. So we don't want to keep wasting time with fellows who think now this party and we can do this. That is hot air. That is hot air. It can never deliver the results. You will keep sloganeering, you keep dressing whatever dress you have. Museveni will not go if you continue doing the same approach. We are trying at the front to change that approach. We are trying to minimize conflict. We are trying to minimize the rivalry among democracy-seeking forces, build harness unity, and focus on organization, focus on collective capability. That is very, very important. Collective capability. NUP has its capacity. FDC has capacity. DP has its capacity. UPC has capacity. Now, you need to bring that collective capacity together. If you leave it disjointed as is, you are not going to get the results that you want. So the front is looking at the strategic issues that have failed us. And the front wants to engage in a discussion with you people in the diaspora, with all Ugandans, to ensure that we get the same understanding of the work ahead and what needs to be done.
In the diaspora that tends to be having almost the same similar approach or similar ideologies. It's called the Uganda Federal Consultative Council. I wonder whether you have heard of that and whether you have tried to read into their lines. And are you ready? If you have, are you ready to? Do you feel like there is need to amalgamate your ideas and then have something done?
There is no monopoly of ideas. There's nobody has the monopoly of how to do it. We are looking for the right frame. If there is any organization at home or abroad that shares the same objects and that wishes to partner with the front to propel the agenda forward, it is readily welcome. We are ready to engage. We have not closed our doors to consult with any Ugandan who has ideas on how we should carry the agenda forward. Uganda, this organization, we seem to have one thing in common: change of the Kampala regime. 2, federalism. We believe in federalism. We believe federalism is the way to go. And should this organization or in the diaspora be ready to engage, we are on a call away. We are ready to engage. We are ready to get into the detailed discussion. We are ready to get even to discuss further on how we can fine-tune some of these ideas. I know that there are many people out there with ideas. We need all the ideas on board, and we want to invite this federal front in the diaspora. We want to invite even other fronts, other organizations in the diaspora that are interested in the work we do to partner and join hands.
Most of putting a lens onto most of these things that are really been a question to many people. Would you wrap up that topic and try to, look into what Honorable has talked about, and we go to another topic.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Juho. I hope I'm loud and clear.
You are.
To Honorable, yeah, thank you so much. Honorable Mabike, thank you so much for setting the record straight, because it's actually important that if you have a message or you're leading a front like you are, to come to some of these channels to make your point and clear any issues or questions that the public might have. From me to you is, yes, I just use the term old timers because that's what most of the people in the front are. Most of them have been tested leaders. They've been at least worthy opponents of the regime, and it is. I didn't say that in bad faith that these are not going to bring any desired kind of results or change that the Ugandans need, but again, probably just borrowing a leaf from The Expendables. I think most of us have watched the movie. Those other old mercenaries who are always good at getting rid of any threats or crises that there were, and they indeed succeeded, and they were The Expendables. Very interesting movie. If you haven't watched it, I think you should. But leaving movies aside and onto what the issues are, on the center stage right now. Yes, you put out the 24 issues or crises that Uganda, or rather, yes, Ugandans are actually facing. And I can see, yes, you had mismanagement of the pandemic, healthcare crisis, corruption of the pandemic. It's a very beautiful list, and I think it's no different from what every other change-seeking Ugandan is trying to deal with. And I think we can all agree that these points are indeed true. They reflect exactly the issues that are on ground that people are trying to deal with or wrestle with or try to get solutions for. Of course, we probably have to give you time to consult the team to give us the response to some of these issues. And indeed, you've been able to do that with some of the solutions. You say you want a smaller government, you want to tackle and address all these issues, as in their own state, because each of them actually requires kind of case-by-case kind of solution or basis to evaluate and then kind of craft a solution that is going to fit the wider public. I am a little concerned that, of course, these points are so many, and I wish you could thin that list down to about 5 or 10 points, like the way someone came in with this 10-point program. And yes, the way NUP maybe came in with its 24 power. But again, being the kind of group that NFT is, which is all these politicians who have had a good race, or rather, run in the public. I think there are more issues that each of you looks at and would like to solve. Probably my biggest concern is that I don't know whether you've looked at the flip side of some of these issues. Exactly where you think the solution is actually another crisis in the whole thing. Say, for instance, if you looked at something like what? If you looked at something like maybe let me just pick one point. Let's look at maybe the issue of youth. I think there was a point about the youth unemployment in there. Yes, there is an issue about the youth and how you plan to actually address their issues in there. The truth is, yes, the population is expanding, and the current regime has totally failed to address that because there's no way of dealing with the numbers. Uganda is actually adding about 1 million or so people to its population year in, year out. And with this number going up, more people are, of course, in school, and more people are actually going to be looking for jobs. So I can assure you, if the Red Front is to take power, maybe, let me give you maybe 5 years. For instance, I'm putting your success rate that close. Just know that by then you're going to have accumulated kind of issues or other problems to the ones that we already have at the moment. Just looking at how youth unemployment is, it's going to get worse. If you think if we're looking at it right now being, about 80% plus of the youth are out of a job, by the time you take power, it might be at 90. And looking at some of the other strategies you might have, which is now you want a smaller government. Remember that the government itself, in tackling some of these issues, it's why it has created some of this kind of gerrymandering in some sort of way, where it has created more jurisdictions or other districts and places where people can actually get jobs. So all these
bring in Honorable Marike finally to wrap up in 2 minutes to wrap up this topic of the front. Yes, Honorable, can you?
Yes. The document that you see that you are highlighting, they are only meant to produce common understanding. Yes, there are issues that NUP has brought out. There are issues this brings out. There are issues that civil society brings out. Do we have a common understanding of these issues? That was the intention of that document, to try to generate a common understanding. And once you generate that common understanding, then the public will know what they are actually fighting for. That must be the foundation of the struggle that we are engaged in. So yes, these issues have been discussed by different fora, but what we have tried to do is to establish common understanding. I want to just take you on one issue before I actually wrap up: the issue of education appetite. In Uganda today, you have a whole generation that is going to grow up in need. The top 1%, which we talked about in the document, take their children to international schools. The second class takes their children to private schools, which is about 9%. The rest of the country, which is 90%, takes these children to UPE and USE schools for 2 years. And I can tell you, for 2 years, the kids of the rich 1% are international schools. The kids of the second class are on Zoom, having online classes. The 90% kids in Uganda are at home for 2 years doing nothing. So you actually, this is Uganda's future. This is Uganda's future generation, and you have relegated it for 2 years without knowledge, because education is a process by one generation transfers knowledge to the next. Now, for 2 years, our young people, 90% of Uganda's young people, are not doing anything. Some now are taking drugs, others are out of school, the girls have become pregnant, and it is becoming a completely wasted generation. How are you going to manage this in the future? It's a very, very, very serious crisis. But we want to, wherever you are, whether you're in the diaspora or in Uganda, we want us to generate a common understanding of the crisis at home. And next, having generated that, also generate a common understanding on how to deal with this. We want to appeal to you in the diaspora to be open-minded about the work that we, the political actors, are doing at home. Don't close your mind. Be open-minded. Be open to ideas. You are welcome. Invite us to discuss these ideas so that we also now generate a common understanding on how to deal with the crisis. It is very critical.
Time takes a toll on everyone, they say. Time is merciless, it won't wait for us to change. Time, I am stressing out, I can't figure out what to say. Oh, time, just give us time.
Looks like a cut.
Time, looking back on pictures, and I find it hard to see you and myself in place where we used.
Welcome back to the second section or segment of the Tower at UNN. My name is Dr. Juko once again, and as usual, the host and presenter of the show. When we discuss, we have been the first segment, we've been able to know exactly what the front is all about, and we are now very conversant with what they do and how they are doing that. Let's go to the second part of our show, and this is about the issue to do with the bail bill. Lawmakers and human rights defenders have condemned the minister for backing what they called draconian laws that seek to curtail freedom and take away the discretion of the judicial officers to grant or deny bail. When you look at Ugandan laws, a person has a right to applying for a bail. But the president was very clear the other time when he rushed to the judges and the chief justice in the conference. I mean, in which they had, he was addressing the people that had gathered for the memorial service of the late Archbishop, the late former chief justice. Ben Chiwanuka. He was very clear that with him, he doesn't feel like there is need to have bail for the, especially people that are on those big cases. So, Honorable Mabike, as a lawyer, would like you to tell us, I mean, what is the implication of all this that the president wants people not to have bail, and how can it be a menace to democracy in Uganda? Let me go to Lawrence. Lawrence, you've had enough time to look at possibly this issue of the bail application, and the way the president is trying to push it up seems like there is a big problem, as if there is a big problem, and yet it doesn't look to be a problem. It is that's the systematic failure. The systems have failed to to execute some of these issues, and is pushing it back to the judges. What is your take about this?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Jacob, for once again that question. If I may just get to it, bail has always been, I think historically, as far as even before Christ, bail has always existed. It's sort of just an assurance that you will show up and answer for whatever deeds you might have committed in any kind of public court or setting, as long as you go contrary to you know, the norms or the culture of that place. And if I may just explain to you, okay, I think I'm just getting feedback right there for me to do. So bail, I think, yeah, we just dealt with that. Sorry, there was just a technical issue in the back. I was just hearing it in my microphone. So bail is, everyone, I think, can get bail or should get bail and have a chance to argue their case, probably out of court. I mean, coming from home and out of court, depending on what conditions they might in, and also the gravity of the case they might have. So, of course, there are some more serious crimes that do not entitle you to bail. One for those, especially those that are almost 100% sure, which is also very hard to determine just before you put before a judge to determine whether you're actually guilty or not. But in some cases, of course, and that is, of course, I was so rather surprised to find that even corruption. If you are in a corruption scandal, you're not entitled to bail. But again, I think we've seen that being abused over and over again. The others, of course, it's murder, terrorism, and all these other cases that are related to that nature. The ones that, especially the ones that call for the death penalty, you might not be entitled to bail. The ones that go to the High Court. But as Ugandans right now, why? Because I think the bail law has been there for a while. Why now is it of interest, and why is everyone just taken up by the issue, and why more so does the president or the leaders really want you to focus on it? Is it that people have actually abused bail in some sort of way? I think that might be right to a certain extent, because there are people who have actually been granted bail that do not deserve it. And maybe, I don't know what kind of strings they pulled in the system, and they were able to secure it. And by this, I think the system, or rather the president, is trying to, he's noticing that since this trend is happening, he needs to stop it like immediately by kind of reforming the bail law. This has happened historically, even in the States, whereby the bail reforms have happened over and over again. I think we've had like probably 2 every 100 years or so. So in Uganda, it won't be any different. But at the moment, I think what is more cause for concern is who this law is going to target, who might be the victims for such a law, or rather such a reform coming into play. You And again, that is we're yet to see how that plays out. Of course, cabinet has already kind of approved that to go to the floor of parliament, and with the regime having the numbers in there, I don't think there's much that is going to change. That might just pass as is, though we might be surprised if they vote otherwise, because again, this law is also going to target them to some sort of way. The same people who are going to, make the law themselves. So I would hope they use their wise counsel and then consult widely, if they may, they represent before they assent to that bill and consent, and then it is put into law, and then it's applied on every other Ugandan. I would wish that is what the parliament does, but that is what we're observing right now. So for me, the whole bail issue, just like the way Honorable Mabike said earlier, I think the public is just getting, or rather kept busy with what some people would call non-issues, because I look at bail, it has always been there. So it is there. It is not that it's going to change drastically. I think they just have to, they're just amending the 48 hours, not to include the weekend, and just the magistrate to be a little more strict when giving out bail, which again, I think they've been doing. But I wonder how different the president wants them to do it, because it looks like now they have to hear him from one ear, and then before making a decision, and then do his will, which I don't think that is legally correct. But other than that, this how this unfolds for the next few weeks or months as Parliament debates this on the floor, and we see whether they're actually going to go back to the people to consult on this issue, or everyone is just going to go to Chakwazi or wherever and then pick their positions and then come and vote on that. We wait to see how that will play out, but I think I will just leave that point at that.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, for that insight. And I wonder whether we can now reach Honorable Mikey. Honorable Mikey, are you there? Can you hear us? Yes, Honorable. Yes, we seem to have lost him. Lawrence, in the same regard, let's look at also the issue of the teachers. The teachers seem to have been, government is planning to remove the diploma teachers and grade 3 certificate teachers from the system. They are saying that it seems like the system is so old and dilapidated that needs to be overhauled, and they think that possibly when you look at grade 3 teachers, those were the ones that had come from senior 4, and then they went and trained for teaching, especially in the primary section. And then the diploma teachers, those are the ones that go from senior 6, and then after that go to the teacher training college, and they get a diploma which allows them to teach lower secondary. Now the government seems to be very, very confident that when they remove that from the system, they are going to train their teachers better. And actually, they are proposing that teachers can be trained at the university for 4 years. That the first 3 years will be for possibly the academic training, and then after that, they will be coming over for 1 year for internships. Let's also, okay, before we go to that, let me have Honorable Mabike about the issue of the bill. Honorable, I hope now you are clear.
Yes, I'm clear. What issue have you discussed? Have you been discussing bail?
The issue of bail, yes. It seems that the president seems to have lost trust in the judges and is now trying to, bring up issues that the judges blaming the judges to have failed the bail issue, that they give the bail so fast, and then they bring a lot of issues to the public, and the people can lynch those people that have been released.
That's not so correct. I have listened partly to Lawrence, and one thing you should know is that bail is a constitutional right. It is granted at the discretion of, in other words, it is granted with the conditionalities of which courts, if satisfied, court then can give you and grant you bail. Bail is enshrined in the old principle of law called presumption of innocence. The presumption of innocence is a law principle which provides that whoever is accused of any criminal act is presumed innocent until is pronounced guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction, or if he himself pleads guilty. So bail is a right. Two, the courts have got a discretion. They can grant or not grant. But if they find you satisfy their conditions, they can give you a bail. If they feel you are not satisfying their condition, they may deny you that bail. Now, you should also know that bail is one of the inalienable rights that is protected by the Constitution of Uganda. It is enshrined in Chapter 3 of the Constitution. There are those rights that nobody can wish away, as I have said before. You cannot wish away that right of bail. So whether you have killed somebody, you have got to go through a trial process, and bail is part of that pre-trial process, where before your case is determined, guilty or not guilty, you can decide for reasons of being sick, for reasons of being old age, for reason of being a family man. You can be allowed to be out until your case is determined. Now, there are also cases where automatic bail is considered. Now, for instance, if you spend on remand 180 days without going for trial, and remand for 180 days, you have an automatic right of bail. Then I looked at another element where as I said, where you are detained beyond the constitutional hours, so provided you can also apply for bail. Now, I want to say that Mr. Museveni cannot be concerned now. The major problem is that even if Mr. Museveni has got a good idea, that idea becomes suspect because of his track record and long stay. And this particular move is now suspect. We have a lot of suspicion that Mr. Museveni is only trying to use this excuse of amending bail so that he targets political opponents. We are fearing that this is a replay of Obote's detention without trial. You know, in the last days of Obote in 1960, he could arrest you, and you are kept there without trial for months. So I think Mr. Museveni, our fear as opposition, he is trying to reenact Obote's detention without trial law. And here, what is going to happen is going to arrest you, a on a trumped up charge of treason or terrorism, drop you, take you to Luzira, and you are kept there for 6 months. So the fear is that this amendment is going to be misused for political reasons and for political gain. And that is the major reason why actors are completely opposed to it. In that even if it has got good, it may have good justification in some quarters. But we fear that because Mr. Museveni has ultimately become a complete dictator, he is going to misuse and abuse that provision to target political opponents. There are so many other laws which can provide for denial of bail. Court, Police Act, Trial, TIA, Trial Indictment Act, they all have provisions where, if somebody doesn't qualify for bail, should not get it. So why change the constitution just for this particular case? Our worry is, and we think that Mr. Museveni must be dissuaded from taking that path.
The president is just playing his usual politics. In this regard, when you look at some of these points that they put across as cabinet when they were trying to, to approve it to go to parliament, they were saying that it seems like the law doesn't take the precedent seems to be the right one. So in this regard, you find out that the president seems to be having a different agenda that he wants, as you mentioned, to bring about the old law of detention without trial. How do you think, you as the people that are trying to oppose all this system, given the fact that there are very few in parliament, how are they going to fight over that? How are they going to survive this? Because when the president comes in and takes his people to Rajtura or State House, he's going to direct them and tell them to vote for if it goes to parliament. What do you think about this?
You know, the good history we have in the country is that every minister who actually championed a bad law finally fell victim of the same law. If you consider Bataringa, you consider the Onamas of the 60s, the Ngobis, they were all victims of the very law. The minister under Obote, who actually championed the detention without trial law, within 3 months, he was arrested and tried under the same law. You remember POMA, Public Order Management Act, by the former Prime Minister Mbabas. Mbabas championed that law in Parliament. We warned him, and in a few months, he fell victim of the same law. You remember the other phone tapping act? You remember in Parliament, when I was in Parliament, we opposed it and we warned ministers, including Mr. Mbabas, about really championing such obnoxious laws. In no matter of time, they are fallen victims. Now, Parliament should know that if they proceed with that path, many of them don't have immunity. Many of them will certainly suffer victim of the same very, very bad law. You may make a law targeting me, targeting Dr. Juko, but you end up falling victim of the same. Now, as far as opposition is concerned, they are helpless in Parliament. Parliament has got 529 MPs. The opposition combined has got 100. NUPA alone has got 57. FDC 36. DP 9. So, Parliament, as far as we are concerned, you don't expect that you can oppose Mr. Museveni's agenda. Parliament is Mr. Museveni's own institution now, fully captured. The majorities have been engineered in Parliament, and that's why you see really that any law that he wants, it will pass in that Parliament. But we wish to warn members of Parliament that they will soon be victims of the very bad law, just like all those who have championed similar laws before.
Let me go to Lawrence. Lawrence, we are trying to look at the issue of the teachers. The teachers have seemed to be on the hard end of the president. The president met a group of teachers, and when they were discussing, he told them that they shouldn't rush him about the president. He said that they will be a kind of plan that the government has for them, but they shouldn't always try, to push him. But apart from that, it is very clear, according to news, that the president, the education system seems to be in need of changing their strategies by having the grade 3 and grade 5 teachers scrapped off, and the other teachers have to go for 4 years training. Yes. What is your take about this, Lawrence?
Well, thank you again very much, Dr. Juko, for that question again. About the issue of the grade 2-3 teachers, 1-2-3 teachers that are diploma holders and probably some, certificate holders. I think that encompasses those as well. This is again another attempt of the government to try to create a problem create a solution while exactly leaving another one in the offing. Because if you ask how many teachers are actually fit that category that they're going to eliminate, these are people who have taken time to pursue an education or a training in that area, and then start practicing. And most of them have been placed in all these other institutions across the country, that are run by government and private institutions. So are you giving a directive to all institutions to actually fire anyone with a diploma? Is that the directive you are making at the moment? Is there a plan? Was there a plan or any consultation to be like, okay, since this is going to happen to all you teachers, you better upgrade to degrees? And were these teachers enabled to try to pursue degrees in any case? Because I think we have to face the reality that not everyone is going to graduate with a bachelor's degree or a master's or in a PhD for that matter. Some people are just comfortable stopping at some level down there, maybe senior 6 or 4, and then they start pursuing life from where they are. They do not probably have the patience, and other people just do not have the funds to pursue higher education. So as a government, this doesn't fit a kind of organized system that you are just going to scrap all these teachers and then just replace them with degree holders. And in any case, these people you want to bring in, the so-called degree holders, do they have the experience? Because sometimes experience actually supersedes training. In a place like the US here, I think more concentration or emphasis is put on experience other than even the training at times. Because if you're experienced in a field, you know the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts. You're just ready to go. You're packaged to just go and face the job. But with training, yes, you have all these theories or these facts, like you put them, that are just they're just trying to train you to make you ready for the job, but then you don't have the experience. So at the end of the day, you're going to have this strategy might have students face very inexperienced teachers just because they have a degree, and I don't know how that is going to be mitigated at the end of the day. Again, it's just a question to see how this is going to play out. I am not so sure whether that can be implemented immediately. Like you can have all diploma holders or certificate holders, eradicated from the system. I don't think that is practical just like that, just because the government has made a statement. I think it will take a while before it is enforced. And in any case, who is going to enforce this? Yes, I know we had, I think we used to have commissioners that used to to visit schools and ensure that they're in compliance with the directives and the policies of the Ministry of Education? Are you going to give them all this time to go through all these records? We've seen people forging academic documents because they do not have them and yet they have the job. Is this going to be kind of the adaptation that some teachers are going to, turn to in order to keep their jobs? Because keep in mind, as yes, you're making this directive, but then some people's lives depend on that. He's a diploma holder and he has 5, 6, 10 kids to look after. He has a home. He needs the job. And then you're telling him to have a degree. And this, I'm talking about in a typical teacher out there. He's facing the same challenges everyone is. I wonder how that is going to play out. But again, it's sort of interesting to see that, yes, teachers were trying to raise the standards this high, yet when it comes to people who are making decisions for us, like in the parliament, as long as you have a senior 6 paper, you don't even need a diploma. You can go on the floor and represent people out there, which I feel like that is even bigger task that probably should maybe even have required PhD holders, because at least they usually go by by a certain they go by facts and data, as they're making decisions or policies for that matter. But for leaders, you're choosing the ones that are least educated, and then for teachers, yes, you want them as high, which is okay to a certain extent. That yes, we want to have our teachers first, our students actually, have the best teachers they can have. But we could go about this systematically and don't just flip a switch and then you're like, from today, that this is it. There's no diploma holder to teach class, for instance, maybe a primary school class, and even raising the number of years, for the teaching degree to 4 years. I think even in the 3 years, the 3 years was still sufficient. But if you're talking about time, I think these teachers have already had enough time in school, already being part of the school. They're already observing. The training to be a teacher begins when you are in school yourself. And then you just fall in love with just trying to enable other people or impart that knowledge, that you've come across, and you're like, you wish people could figure out concepts the way you do. They could see your, math the way you look at it. They could, get, their biology thing going, their physics, their chemistry, whichever, subject you choose to take, whether it's arts or sciences, it really doesn't matter. Whatever you fall in love with, that's your calling. So teachers have already had this. So whether you make the degree 5 years, I don't think that's going to make a difference. Even if you added 1 year to someone who is really just doing this, make money, and it's not their calling, it's going to be evident in their teaching career that these people are actually out for the money. I don't know how that's going to be reconciled, to differentiate between the calling and the people who are in for the money. All in all, we are waiting to see how this policy is going to play out. I feel like it is really sort of it's going beyond their own powers to try to implement a policy like this. But again, if we may ask, since the teachers are having this kind of criteria on them, can we apply the same criteria to the ministry, the Minister of Education herself? What are her qualifications? Then again, if we are not if we compromise on who the minister or what qualification the minister is going to have, what are the people who are facing the kids in school, every day? How is that? How are we? Why are we having double standards here? So for me, I just feel like that is one of those policies that is probably just to make news, and maybe it is also another one just to ensure that maybe the graduates, because I think we have so many floating graduates taking degrees and they don't have jobs, and you have these diploma holders actually filling that space. So it is just a way to diversify or change direction and try to impress the newcomers on the block who are having these qualifications to take on the center stage, as far as education is concerned. So let's see how that plays out. I'm not so sure it's gonna yield the desired results almost immediately. But yes, I am optimistic that eventually, I think we can all agree that we need the people, the teaching community, to have the highest qualifications they can have, and the best quality kind of teaching staff our students should have, or our children should have. I'll leave that at that, Dr. Jacob.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lawrence. What is very important to note in this regard as for teachers is that, as Lawrence has mentioned, teaching is a calling. I remember those days when we had teachers that could produce the best students. Children could be able to read and write properly, and those were great two teachers. Teachers did a great job at that time. Why? Because they were being paid properly. The way you look at teachers should be that teachers have the basic requirements to teach the children. You cannot have an empty teacher, an empty stomach teacher to teach your children. Some of these things are very simple. I don't think it is logical to have a lot of these things brought in. Some of the technicalities are not applicable. If you take teachers for training 4 years and then you are going to give them peanut payment, I think that is ridiculous. If you bringing teachers to a situation whereby you as a government cannot employ, like 50% of the teachers released by the universities around, it is a big problem. So there are a lot of things that the government can work on other than extending the size of the teachers. The size of the training. Because in the training process, you find yourself that teachers go on undergoing a lot of process. There is teaching practice. There is mentoring by teaching teachers the basic methodologies, the general methodologies of teaching and behavior. Teachers conditions of service, all those are trained within the teaching profession. But when you tell people really that they have to go and train for 4 years to make better teachers, when at this time they have been doing a good job and then they are not getting the best benefits, then you are missing a point. Lawrence, let's finally look at the issue of the salary disparities, because when you look at some of the things that are that has brought a lot of chaos in the teaching profession is that the president said that teachers of science ought to be paid higher than the teacher of arts. And when you look at such circumstances, it is demotivating the teachers, because there was something I was reading and it was saying that when teachers go for training, whether science or arts, they go for the same training. When it comes to choosing a profession, both the teacher of science and arts have the same training bakery. And when you look at the contribution of these two teachers, the science and the arts, I don't see that there is a lot, because we all need lawyers, we all need teachers, we all need artists. So it's not only science that works in the environment that we are in. We need all spheres of life being covered. So when somebody comes and say the teachers that have undergone the same teaching procedure and having the same problem, teaching the same classroom, are going to be paid twice than the other ones, doesn't make sense. So Lawrence, I would want you to come in and tell us what is your take about that.
Well, my take on that is just like the issue just scraping the grade 1 to 3 teachers. It's in the same faith that this is almost done the same way. Sciences or arts, I think the lines in between those are actually very blurred. There's art in science and there's science in arts. I don't know why people think that those two are sort of standing at different sides of the world. It's sort of the same way you debate about women and men, and then you're like, women are so different from men, or men are so different from women. Yes, physiologically, or the biology might say that, but looking at humans as a species, you're just as human beings. You're just all earthlings the way you are. That's why when you look at any other animal, you just say, it's a pig, or it's a goat, or it's a sheep. You're not usually so keen to say it's a male goat or it's a female cow. It's just what it is. But just bringing that the discussion back to where we are, which is arts or sciences. Does it really matter? Yes, we could say to a certain extent, because yes, there's need maybe to stratify certain things, and this is what people do, or humans do. We break down things into smaller components that we can easily understand and easily manage. So now breaking down the education curriculum or courses into arts and sciences, it was just a way to simplify probably more complex issues in the back, such that people can more easily relate or understand these two phenomena. But whether or not someone does sciences or arts, I think it might not necessarily determine whether that person is going to be successful or not. It might not even dictate what price you might, what salary you might get at the end of the day. There are people who earn very highly and they're artists. People who are very miserable in life and they're scientists. There are people who, it doesn't matter what you do at the end of the day to end up being successful. It is just how you do life, and life doesn't it's not really focusing on sciences or arts per se as is. So both are necessary, and I think the government trying to push out this directive that the science teachers should be paid more. If it is just to encourage that you have more scientists, which I think has happened in the past, I think some of these directives have actually come from bigger institutions and even the government itself, more so institutions like the World Bank. I think some of those are conditions attached to our loans. And now, again, we're starting to see the effect of borrowing, of conditional borrowing, in that if these foreign entities are to give money to us, they're going to dictate how we run our affairs. So they see so many artists out there and they don't see the value, and they're like, maybe if you focused on sciences. You remember just a few weeks ago, we had that expo, the Dubai Expo, and then you saw what we put up there. We're just advertising wildlife and, a few local products like you saw. And if you are to look at the other stores from more developed economies, you saw what they were putting out there. They are looking for investments in AI, in technology, in medicine. These are the areas that are very lucrative, and more so again science-based, we could say. But what did we have? If the president is trying to make that move just in order to stop the embarrassments we're having on shows like this, where we are not having any big innovation to put out there, which I sort of disagree with, because I think we have a few scientists out there who are trying to make a change. If you are to look at, I think, the Kira Corporation, those are the guys who did the electrical vehicle a few years back, and I think they've been pushed to build a plant, and right now they're trying to assemble a few cars here and there. When you look at it, yes, those are scientists, but let me ask, do you think that everyone working in that plant is a scientist? Because not everyone necessarily is needed. Sometimes you don't need as many scientists to push certain ideas. You might need a few scientists to do the hard work in there, the coding and all that, and streamlining the engineering such that it works. But when it comes to other aspects of the business, like who are you going to put as your public relations officer? I don't think you're going to look for someone with chemistry. He might not be able to, engage the audience the way you do. And I think that has been evident even here in the Silicon Valley, where yes, they were focusing on STEM. That is the science acronym here, and I think even in Uganda it might come up anytime. But they were looking for artists to do some of that other work. If you're going to look for salespeople, those are people who are going to be talking to clients and trying to get you business. You might not need someone who's going to give them the algorithms in the back that do not make any sense to the client. It might just need someone who is a little outgoing, can go to a golf course and then crack a few jokes, and at the end of the day, yes, you have a deal. And yes, money is in the bank, and yes, the company is growing, the economy is growing, everyone is happy. So I mean, artists do play a big role out there. They complement the scientists. And for now, the president just trying to direct that the scientists are paid more. I think it's just a little short-sightedness. If you look at Uganda as a nation, I think we have more artists running the show than the scientists. And maybe this has also not helped us go any further because since the scientists are kept in the background, they're not living out to their full potential. Most of them are put in some repetitive jobs out there and they are not exactly innovative. But if you are a scientist per se, you're supposed to be innovating, you're expanding awareness. You have to go beyond whatever concepts you picked from school. Now, if you look how many scientists out there have pushed out more in the world, more so in Uganda ourselves. I mean, here it is more evident that people can drop out of school and then they create a Facebook and they create a Microsoft. These are companies that are bigger than economies of entire countries. These are dropouts. Yes, they might have been pursuing science courses, but again, they didn't even have to finish school to, build those ideas. And in most cases, these people are using people who are still in the school system to build the ideas, and they're employing a ton of artists and scientists all in the same bucket to drive their ideas. But I'll tell you that in an ideal setup, you might imagine or think that there should be a 50-50 split between scientists and artists, but that isn't usually the case. We can agree that there will always probably be more artists out there, and it's not because art is any easier, but probably that is where people gravitate more to humanities, things that connect to nature, to things, to just everyday life as is. The scientists can usually be a little more abstract, and they are thinking, yes, they want to create knowledge, and then they lose, the public or their audience. So I would just leave that at that. But I think salary, if you're demotivating the artists and then they all leave, what is going to happen to the jobs that are supposed to be taken by artists? I think that's a good question.
Lawrence, before you leave it at there, when you look at most of because Ugandan situation is quite awkward. What they say is not what they do. Science teachers would be very valuable if they were, given the discretion to do what they do. Like you find a science teacher who cannot, a physics teacher who cannot even move around or do some private work, that like lighting. I mean, wiring, wiring a house of his own, and that is a science teacher who cannot even know how to the socket, if it is has a problem, can be fixed. These are the people that have been kept behind the curtain, and they say now they are going to help them do a lot of stuff. I mean, get a lot of money, and then but again, when you look at even the money they are talking about giving them, it's not what they're supposed to get. So I believe all this is just a frustration to the profession. What do you think about that element where people, teachers, or whether teachers, students, scientists, are not practical in Uganda? They don't do what they are taught to do.
the way I look at it is more like it all has to do with the environment in which these teachers are operating. I mean, if you're a very creative person or mind, and then you're put in an area that is going to frustrate your creativity, it's going to limit your freedom. You're just, concentrating on your survival per se. I don't think you're going to innovate anything, which seems to be the case for most of the teachers. Okay, some of the people who actually are not innovating anything in their fields. And this is more so a reality in Uganda, that it's no secret that most people feel like they just have to look out for their survival, other than their calling or interests or whatever might actually make them reach their potential, or explore or put those ideas or build those ideas that might be as profitable, like I've just given you for the case of the school dropouts that we have in economies like, more developed economies like here. So yes, we do have a good number of engineers who are just there, just signing drawings, and then others are just, they're not exactly innovative. They're just, they're just constating that something is well designed, and that is it. To change a line or anything in most of the drawings or reports, they are handed down by some of these foreign companies or corporations that are engaged in, all these other projects in the country. More so if you go to road construction or engineering, we have there. Yes, we do have engineers in there, but they'll confess to you that sometimes they don't feel like they're, using their attained training or knowledge in schools to its full potential in the job market. So it mostly has to do with just the environment, that it is very limiting. And it has just been done exactly like that, purposely, just to, restrain or constrain those elements or those people. And to me, it's just very unfortunate. And that's why you see most of these professionals are ending up leaving the country. They're coming, they're going to, Rwanda, Kenya, wherever, all these places they can go to. You find even people would rather go to the Middle East to be challenged. And sometimes it's, of course, money, because, yes, it's the salaries. They're thinking the salaries are going to keep them. I don't think they are, because I am sure some of the teachers just across the border, if you move to Sudan, they're going to be paid more. So that outflow, exodus of talent is not going to stop by just a simple line like this put out in the public, that yes, we're going to pay more, but by how much? I don't think they are going to double their salaries per se. I think, yes, schools have been keen enough to supplement some of these teachers' payments with PTA allowances and all these other programs they did, which I think helped to a certain extent to supplement their incomes, because the government was not paying enough. But right now, where things are, it looks like even they're just out of cards to play. It's just trying to water the same issue and just praying that the plant grows any faster. It's not. It's just what it is. The environment is constraining people at the end and even within. So you're like, probably if we paid more teachers, if you paid teachers more, do you think you're going to have smarter engineers necessarily, or more engineers? I don't think so. And again, you're looking at the teachers, but teaching goes like almost 3 ways, if not 4 ways. Yes, government is there as a control body, or the ministry, could put it at that. Yes, you're looking at teachers, you're paying attention, or rather trying to resolve teachers' problems, but what of the students' problems? Have the students shown that they want to do sciences, per se? And you're like, to encourage, to help you, get your science training or your science stream, we are going to put more teachers and pay them more. Have the students been consulted in this whole thing? I don't think so. Then let's go to the parents who are actually going to be paying for this. As much as the government says it's going to pay, it's actually the parents. Have the parents been consulted, and do they agree necessarily that the teachers should be? Yes, the teachers who do science should be paid more. I don't think we had any report or data to suggest that. But if it is there, it should be it should be shared such that people can better understand where this decision came from, and maybe we shouldn't. Then it would clear all these questions that we have. We are like, okay, the students were consulted, the teachers were consulted, then this is the direction. But if it is just coming from, yes, the teacher came up there like they need money, and then they are first of all, threatened with their being treasonous, and they are, by asking for more money. And then at the end of the day, like, yes, all of you are just trying to put the government on ransom. Then you come up and you go think, and you're like, I think let's just pay one of these group of people within the people who are asking for more money. Let's promise at least one group, and then we shall tell the others we shall deal with them later. I don't think that is necessarily the best way to go about this. Yes, you're trying to give a solution, but still you're still issuing it with so many threats and warnings, and you're pushing people in a direction that they might not want to go. And of course, if you did any project management, you need to have all the stakeholders on board such that they agree. But it looks like the teachers the students are as surprised as the parents, and the teachers are even more confused right now on what to do next, because yes, they wanted an increase, which has come up, but to only a faction. So there you have it, doctor. It is exactly where it is. Everyone is just wondering what is happening.
Quite ridiculous, Lawrence, because when you look at teachers, the government cannot consume the produced teachers every year, because every year universities all over Uganda produce teachers.
Yeah.
And these teachers have been occupied by possibly the private sector, and where they are even paid less in some circumstances, especially with the secondary teachers.
Yeah.
When the government would be the best place, but how many, if they are pushing the training, and these parents are paying a lot of money for training, like for 4 years, it has been very hard for them for 3 years or 2 years. I myself was initially I started as a secondary teacher. So I think the issue could be that the biggest problem is not trying to push up this, but it's the point of trying to, find a strategy that can run forever, not only for a short term. The problem is our governments make short-term promises, or short-term strategies, which cannot work for. I think, Lawrence, we cannot go beyond this. Thank you very much for the time that you've given us, and I thank also Honorable Mike Mawike for the effort, regardless of the challenges in Uganda. Lawrence, can you say bye-bye to our viewers as we try to get out of here?
All right. Thank you so much again, Dr. Chika, for the opportunity to be part of the conversation. Of all the issues that we've discussed, I hope they've, awakened someone out there, or illuminated someone more so, especially the issues that the Red Front brought. It's really good to have information from a first person, from a person like the Secretary General. I think that's interesting. That was good to have. Now we can, at least some questions were answered, and I think people can now have a better understanding of what the Red Front is all about. On the other issues that we've decided to tackle, yes, Ugandans are all aware of what is happening. We're giving perspective and views. And yes, you too can add your view by participating with us in the studio, giving us text, messages, questions, and anything that might not be so clear, such that we might, maybe give some insight on what your concerns are. But otherwise, I'm always happy to be part of this, this big voice and the Truth Command Center as is. And I would like to wish all our viewers out there a very good afternoon if you're down here in Boston, and if you're in Uganda, a very great night. And let us all focus on building our nation and the future we all desire to have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. You are always the best. You always give us the best, and we all appreciate your work. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot go beyond this. As usual, we have to close until the next weekend. But as we close down, we should also know that the issues that we discuss here are for the good of our country, and everybody around the world needs to know. We always appreciate your feedback. We always appreciate those who come to participate, and we always try to push as we try to push forward. And we don't want you to forget that this is our Truth Command Center. We always say the truth here, and other people can always give in what they feel is right. We have today discussed, as Lawrence has mentioned, the issue of the cabinet issue on the factor of the bill, the bail bill. And, you know, people have to know that it is a right of a person to have a bill. The issue of the front unveiling the strategic plan has been clearly discussed by Honorable Mavike, and everybody, I think, whether has a question, the discussion continues. We cannot also forget the issue of our teachers in Uganda who are suffering to get the survival. Now, you know, the private sector has been on hold. Teachers who have been working in private schools are on hold and really finding a lot of trouble getting into the system or moving within the system. However, we cannot say much about it, but Uganda needs a revampation. We need to revamp our country in order to make sure that we get the best out of it. I thank all our viewers for the effort and the time. We thank our producer who has done the best to make sure that the show goes on the best way. And we don't always forget to thank all the UNNians, those who work with us in the background to make sure that we get the best. Thank you very much. The discussion continues on our platform. Go ahead, make your comments, share, and at the end of it all, we shall be able to outweigh the dictatorship. Don't forget to send a message on our UFCC, that is Uganda Federation Consultative Council, to show your interest as we try to get nearer to the time of discussing the issues of Uganda. Have a good night, have a good weekend, have a good next week. And those in America and the rest who celebrate Halloween's Day, happy Halloween's Day. And I think we shall be back on Sunday, that very Halloween day time. We shall be here. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless Uganda.